Despite the growth of their empire, the early Sasanian kings remained faithful to their roots. Here in Fars, Shapur built a new city on the proceeds of his raids into the Middle East and with the help of his Roman prisoners. It became a great commercial center.
Because this is thought to be a temple to Anahita, isn't it? The water goddess?
Yes, this is so, David. The reason is that here you see the water, the temple arranged to receive water pouring in from all corners. Now, it's here because this is the great goddess of water, Anahita, who is also the great goddess of the town and of the area, the goddess who showed by her granting of water that Bishapur and Shapur, who founded Bishapur, the name is Be-Shapur, Shapur's good deed, the way in which he celebrated his great conquest throughout the Near East was to bring a town here, and in the middle of the town, a temple of Anahita.
As it were, the local...
The goddess, which was always the protecting goddess of Shapur, of the Sasanian family, and of the whole area.
Ah,
yes, this is it.
Now, this is it. In the midst of a 120-degree day, you can see what they meant about water.
Well, this is the water on which the town and the castle depended. This really is the lifeblood of the whole area.
And the castle, in fact, was just over here.
The castle is up there, almost hidden in the rock, so well built as to sort of fit in as if it was just one geological formation among others.
And in addition to the water in the very hot climate here, the strength of that fortification must have been one of the reasons that Shapur picked this place.
Yes, indeed. The town is a prestige town. It lies on the plain, exposed. The real place is the royal fortress and the castle up above the town, which nobody could take.
The mosaics from the palace floors of Bishapur, now in the Louvre, were made by Roman prisoners of war. They show a way of life, a sense of luxury, already far removed from the austerity of the early days of the dynasty. Court seals, too, indicate increasing administrative order, as well as an affirmation of the Sasanian sense of style. Ardashir had decreed that everybody had their place and should keep to it. Shapur knew his place and ensured it for all time by having his image carved out of the rock in this cave, high in the mountains overlooking Bishapur. For the people in such a land, the equity of life often rested on the distribution of water. Unless water was shared in equal measure, there would be conflict. The men who controlled the water were called then, as they are today, the mirabs.
بله
This Murab explains that he shares this land near Bishapur with 13 others. They tap their water supply and distribute it to each plot, adjusting the flow to conserve water and to avoid loss by evaporation under the fierce sun.
And the various elements that Zoroastrians particularly respected, fire and water and earth and so on, would you say they were the main ingredients of the religion?
Well, look, David, this is what you've got to think about. Here's a world which was made by Ahura Mazda, the god, made to be as good as possible, made in harsh conditions with constant enmity, nature and of the demons. This care of Ahura Mazda for the world was made plain to men in the fire, above all here in the water, and one can see how much one needs it, in the earth that is made fertile by the water.
And what other responsibilities in terms of living did a follower of Zoroastrianism have?
Well, he had to keep things going. It was very much a religion of keeping things going, of keeping the water pure and clean, of keeping the land under cultivation. But then, of course, you can't just have land and water because there are human beings in it. So you've got to keep oneself in well-organized, in an upright society.
This really is a majestic rock relief here, Peter, and both figures look almost godlike.
Well, David, I think that's part of the whole point of the rock carving. You see, this is a rock carving which shows Ahura Mazda and the king as exact mirror images. You see the way they're carved. It's like as if they've been cut out of a bit of folded paper. The front leg of each horse, perfectly carved, so well carved you can see the artery running down it, are exactly equal. And this is the way of showing that on earth the king is the visible co-god, the equivalent of the invisible God. The invisible God overcomes his enemies in the universe at large, and the visible king, as you see with the fallen enemy at his feet, overcomes his enemies in the world that we can see.
And gods approve of battles in the human world for that reason.
Oh, yes, indeed, because that is the way in which the order of the good society can be made plain in the world we can see as well as in the world that we can't see.
And what is the king, what is Shapur exactly being presented with?
Well, he is reaching out his hand to receive the ring of kingship, the ring of empire over the world, over the bit of the world which he controls. And he has gained it by his conquest.
And within this tradition, then, if a king lost, did he lose because he had already angered the god, or did his defeat then anger the god?
That's something which, on the whole, the Sasanians, being on the whole successful kings, didn't spend much time worrying about.
But in the cases of where they had their periods
where they had their periods of defeat...
Was it because they had angered the gods, or that their defeats then angered the gods?
No, it was because they had angered the gods.
And it was a punishment?
It was a punishment.